Not to be confused with Polaris' Sportsman XP machines, the Sportsman 500 is part of Polaris' value line of 4x4 ATVs, along with the Sportsman 400 and 800. Built in the USA, the value line is based on Polaris' previous generation of ATVs, offering proven designs at prices that rival machines being produced in China and Taiwan. In case you weren't aware, the Polaris Sportsman 500 is the best-selling fully automatic 4x4 ATV of all time. For 2011, it received a number of updates. Polaris began by refining the frame, increasing its rigidity. The radiator mounting point was raised 3 inches for improved mud protection, and the winch mount was lowered for an improved winching angle. Powering the machine is a 498cc water-cooled 2-valve single overhead cam 4-stroke engine. A carburetor feeds the engine, saving hundreds of dollars compared to fuel injection. Electric starting brings the 500's engine to life via an automotive turnkey-style switch. This year, all of the value line Sportsman models receive the same fully automatic CVT-style Polaris variable transmission used in the X2. This was done for greater commonality, reducing manufacturing costs. The transmission features both high and low ranges, plus neutral reverse and park. The drive system features Polaris' selectable 2-wheel drive and all-wheel drive setup. In all-wheel drive, the rear wheels take care of drive duties until they begin to slip. At that point, power is equally transferred to both front wheels, providing true 4-wheel drive until you let off the gas. If there's available traction, the system will once again deliver power to just the rear wheels, providing lighter steering most of the time and more traction when necessary. Power is transferred to all 4 wheels through shaft drive. Making up the suspension are McPherson struts front and sway bar equipped dual A-arms rear. The Sportsman was the first machine on the market with IRS, and its suspension travel numbers are impressive, even by today's standards, with 8.2 inches up front and 9.5 inches in the rear. Long suspension travel aids in yielding an impressive 11.25 inches of ground clearance. Dual hydraulic disc brakes up front and a single hydraulic disc brake in the rear slow the Sportsman. Single lever braking is mounted on the left side of the handlebars and applies the brakes at both ends. The rear brake can be operated independently with a right side mounted foot pedal. The most notable of the machine's changes is its new, more modern styling, which looks very similar to the XP models. The front end protrudes less, improving the rider's sightline. Mounted in the front of the machine are a set of new 50-watt low beam headlights. A 50-watt high beam headlight is mounted in the handlebar mounted pod, along with a combination digital and analog display. Stamped steel wheels are very common in this price range, but the high-quality 25-inch Carlisle tires help make up for it. A new lock and ride storage box offers 5.3 gallons of water-resistant capacity, in addition to the machine's rear storage box. The rack capacity is rated at 90 pounds up front and 180 pounds in the rear. The rear hitch receiver can tow up to 1,225 pounds. A wheelbase of 50.5 inches is typical of a full-size machine. Its 48-inch width is a bit wider than most, and its seat height of 33.75 inches is a bit lower than some. Polaris is not known for building light 4x4s, and the Sportsman 500 is pretty hefty for its displacement at 695 pounds dry, aka 725 pounds with fuel and all other necessary fluids. At this point, we've put several months of use on our 2011 Sportsman 500. It was used over the winter to plow snow. We've taken it on several trail rides and used it to haul tools for trail building. Pull the handlebar pod-mounted choke lever, turn the key, and the Sportsman roars to life, taking a bit longer to warm up and settle down compared to fuel-injected models. Although it's not fuel-injected, the carburetor-fed engine ran crisp and clean once warmed up. The 500's power output is strong and smooth throughout the usable RPM range. It's fast enough for spirited trail riding, providing plenty of torque for steep climbs. Due to its weight, the Sportsman is actually faster than it feels. We did a lot of plowing with the machine over the winter, and the 500 felt nearly unstoppable in low range. The transmission's high range worked well most places on the trail. It did a good job of backshifting when necessary, but we noticed a bit of lag when you hit the gas. Low range seemed better suited for extremely technical situations. Once you get past the challenging obstacle, you'll want to shift back into high range, as low is best suited for crawling along or doing hard work. Shifting between the transmission's ranges is smooth enough, although the shifter is a bit dated looking and makes it difficult to judge which range you're in without looking at the handlebar mounted display. There is something to be said for four-wheel drive systems that allow you to lock in all four wheels all of the time, but we haven't found ourselves in a situation yet where it would have made the difference between us being stuck or getting out. We like the easier steering and extra traction provided when necessary by Polaris's all-wheel drive system. Getting a deal doesn't mean you have to sacrifice comfort. Everything about the Sportsman is plush, starting with its suspension. Cruising along the trail, it isolates you from everything with equal prowess. Small rocks, roots, and bumps simply don't exist on the Polaris. Water bars, small logs, and square-edged bumps transmit virtually no shock to the rider. Traversing a rough section, you can see the shocks working as the wheels move up and down through their travel, while the chassis remains mainly unaffected. Despite its phenomenal level of plushness, the Sportsman surprises you when you hit a jump, G-out, or drop-off harder than expected, as its suspension is as adept to dealing with big hits as it is to dealing with small ones. Although the front shocks aren't preload adjustable, the Sportsman remained pretty level with only a small amount of front-end sag, under the weight of Cycle Country's 60-inch Bear Force plow. The shocks did a good job of keeping the machine level, while sitting still or plowing large snow piles. On steep climbs and descents, the 500 felt planted and secure. Despite its large-scale size and high ground clearance, the wide Sportsman is pretty trustworthy on side hills. Its stability is decent in corners as well, as long as you don't push too hard. Overly aggressive cornering will result in some body roll. However, its width and a bit of front-end push will keep you from getting into trouble unexpectedly. Steering effort isn't overly taxing considering its weight, and it goes where it's pointed, as long as you don't get too carried away with your throttle hand. Overall, its handling is great for utility purposes and decent for trail riding, as long as you aren't trying to ride at the pace of factory Polaris GNCC racer Daryl Rav. Hydraulic disc brakes offer decent stopping power, but its single-lever braking system requires a bit more pressure than some, and lacks feel. It is nice having a separate rear brake pedal for steep descents, where you don't want much or any front braking force, but we wish we could engage the rear brake without removing our foot from the peg. Now why can't Polaris add a separate front brake in case you have to back down a steep hill? The brakes work well despite feeling outdated, and it's a good thing. The one feature that the Sportsman is missing that many of its competitors possess is an engine braking system. We dig the 500's tire selection. The Carlisle treads hooked up well in all conditions from dry hardpack to sloppy mud. Even in two-wheel drive, the Carlisles did a good job of sticking to slick creek banks. The tires felt predictable traversing rough terrain and provided good all-around performance. Comfort greets you as you step into the cockpit. The relationship between the bar seat and foot pegs are well spaced for an average size to large rider. Since the engine wasn't rotated 90 degrees like the XP models, the 500 is a bit wider between your legs. The grips are nice and the seat is plush as long as you don't hang too far off in corners, as its padding is a bit thinner on the sides. The floorboards offer plenty of room and splash protection is superb on this machine. We appreciated the generous onboard storage provided by the front lock and ride box and rear trunk. The composite rear rack is smooth in appearance, but both it and the cargo box make it harder to secure items to compared to standard tubular steel racks. We like the combo analog and digital display. The analog speedometer was easy to reference at a glance. The headlights do a good job of illuminating the trail at night, although we wish we could run the low and high beams together, illuminating the trail in front of us in addition to where we're going. Polaris must have been ahead of their time back in 1996, as the 2011 Sportsman 500 remains a very respectable performer, even by today's standards. It's a capable trail machine and extremely hard worker that provides one of the plushest rides on the market. When the Sportsman hit the market back in 1995 as a 1996 model, it retailed for $6,449. For 2011, Polaris is selling a refined and restyled version of that same machine for even less. At $5,999, what you get for the money makes the Polaris Sportsman 500 pretty untouchable by its competition. For more information on the 2011 Sportsman 500 or Polaris' full line of ATVs and side-by-sides, log on to polarisindustries.com.